Hey, Mark Rodriguez here. You're watching America's Second Cure for Insomnia here, the fighting podcast. And I guess you could kind of sort of count as fighting because most of these characters, in their own way, they still fight for, to save the world and the princess and whatever else. So with me are...
William White, a.k.a. NinjaPanda in 1980.
Wendy McBride, also known as NinjaPanda or Jupi Chan, your choice.
Rikki Roxx, God of Thunder, Lord of Rock and Roll, icon of old school, and your ex-wife's favorite wrestler. I was not done, Johnny Rodriguez. See, I hope he doesn't jump in my grave that fast. This guy's so quick, he's even fast asleep. Unbelievable. There it is. Take it, Johnny. Take it. It's your time.
Okay, sorry for the interruption. And this is Johnny Rodriguez.
When you said that, Ricky, I'm imagining like the whole like the grave that's Rikki Roxx and Johnny's there all like in the corner or whatever.
Oh
God. It's gonna be a hot one tonight, baby. It's gonna be hot tonight.
All right, today we're gonna be going into a lot of cartoons in the 80s and 90s and lots of different video game characters. And you got a clue here, the clue from behind Rikki Roxx right there. And also these old figures we got from Toys R Us way back in the day when Super Mario Bros. 2 was still kind of sort of newish. These are kind of cool. And like Johnny said, I'm surprised that I'm surprised these guys like survived this long and everything. You know what I mean?
You know what? I couldn't find it, but I have somewhere. It was one of the first toys my mom ever gave me. It was one of the first pieces of Mario merchandise ever made. It was for the Donkey Kong game. It was a little plastic PVC figurine. He's like sticking a finger up in the air, like triumphantly, just doing like a hero pose kind of deal. It was, like maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches tall. But I loved it as a kid. But then I wouldn't have gotten rid of it. It might be in a box somewhere full of like old, basement stuff or whatever. But yeah, man, so I do have that somewhere, the first Mario collectible figurine. That thing's worth hundreds of dollars now. Behind me here I got some shit. I got the some Mario Bowser figures from the Jax line. I got the DVDs for all those old shows. I got this little guy here. I got the hookups.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got like the 8-bit one somewhere, but I can't find it.
Is there any way you could show the Bowser figure without like knocking stuff over or whatever? Like,
maybe. Yeah, it was a big boy.
Epic,
I got this.
Man.
I got this at GameStop for like nothing, for like $20 maybe or less than that, 15 perhaps.
Crap.
Yeah, it goes great with the other figures. Now let's see if I can put him back without knocking stuff over. Yeah, that's awesome. He goes great with the Mario. Get the posable Mario. I have the Bowser's Castle playset too, but I haven't opened it yet because I'm going to be waiting to do a video for my YouTube channel on that gimmick for that. So look forward to that. I'm going to be doing some Nintendo figures at some point in the future.
And real quick, has everyone seen the Mario movie trailer? Any quick thoughts?
Oh yeah, it was hot, man. I was actually very, very pleasantly surprised with that. I was very happy with that.
I haven't seen it yet.
What the?
Yeah, I saw the trailer. I was completely psyched for it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I am surprised though that they are doing the whole origin thing, and I guess they might go with the Marios from Brooklyn. I thought it was going to be kind of like, I guess they were established, but now here's like, this big adventure that's so big that it's, it requires a movie to tell it. But no, they're going with the origin. Well, it's kind of interesting. And I do want to see a little bit of Mario and Luigi in the real world before he gets sucked into that. One of our people from certain message boards said that his theory that maybe Mario and Luigi went in different pipes and they're separated and they got to, team up. Because obviously in the trailer, Mario was alone when he first showed up, right? So maybe Luigi fell in another pipe or something and they got to reunite somewhere during the movie, and that's kind of cool.
Well, like, that sounds actually nice to me because I kind of hated that, like, retcon thing. Like, they were always from the Mushroom Kingdom stuff and all that other nonsense. Like, how they were twins. But even look like old Nintendo Power stuff, it was like, no, Mario was like a few years older and, Luigi's the younger brother in that way, not like they're twins and Mario's the older twin. So I hope they do away with all that nonsense, which is never been part of my head canon because I am stuck on that original one.
No.
Well, if there's one thing that we figured out very early on, and it's going to be reinforced as we do the deal for today's show, the canon lore of the Mario verse has always been very loose and very fluid to begin with. I mean, so I think they have a lot of room to do almost anything they want with this because, I mean, going back to the beginning, half the stuff contradicted the other stuff anyway. I mean, you know, there was for the longest time debate about where Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. fit into the canon. I mean, you know, so I never get too hung up on it. Miyamoto even says when it comes to Mario, like the story is the last thing you're supposed to be thinking about, the details, you know, but as we are going to discuss and as we've seen, you know, that freedom did lend itself to some pretty cool adaptations in the past, and some were better than others. I think that's why it took so long to get a proper movie made. But yeah, I was actually, and you know me, Mark, you know me, I don't really impress easy, but I went in a hurry from not caring at all to, wow, I actually really want to see this. So yeah, that's definitely, the trailer definitely got me. I'm excited for it now. It looks exactly like what they should be doing. I don't know.
There you go. So right now I'm going to be trying for the first time Coca-Cola with coffee, vanilla. So I'll get my reaction here. We're going to start off real back in the beginning because before the Mario cartoon, which a lot of people know about, there was an older one that was based on Atari games. I think Atari and just arcade games in general. That was called a Saturday Supercade. I think
we got to go back We got to go back even before that, gentlemen.
Oh,
I mean,
wow,
I told you.
Even older than that?
I did some research before I showed up today because I was just a lad. When I was when these shows, we're going back to the beginning. Now, we're going to be talking today a lot about cartoons, Saturday morning and syndicated, based on the old video game properties, the iconic ones. And the first one ever was from Hanna-Barbera. That would be the Pac-Man show. And here's what's cool about that show. That show, it ran for about a year, and it was debuted. It came out a day after I did. I was born September 24th, and that show came out the 25th in 82. So I heralded the Pac-Man show. Yeah, that was the first one based on a video game, and that one, it ended on my wife's birthday, actually, a year later, so that's interesting. But yeah, so Pac-Man was where it all started. Now, I wouldn't have seen it on during its original run because I had literally been just born. I did see it later on, though. I remember seeing it. Did anybody else see the Pac-Man show? Because it actually was more influential than you might think.
I have very, very faint memories of it. I remember watching it back then. I remember when Pac-Land came out, I was kind of like, hey, it's kind of like the show because he's got legs and stuff. And the most I remember is that sometimes Cartoon Network, whenever they do, I don't know about now, but the Cartoon Network of the old days, the one that had, you know, Dexter, Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, whoa, mama, and all that, they would do a thing where almost every Christmas they would have the same kind of specials, and they would rerun the Pac-Man Christmas special that was based on the show, you know, so I would kind of sort of remember that, but I don't remember actual episodes and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. I thought it was part of the Supercade, but no, it was its own separate thing.
Yeah, it originally aired on ABC Saturday mornings. That I do know. Saturday Supercade was part of the CBS lineup.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this tastes almost like vanilla coffee, like those, you know, those Starbucks ones, but with that extra, you know, that soda pop fizz to it. So that's interesting.
I got some kind of cappuccino. I didn't check the label. It's just like this, whether I'm drinking it or smoking it, I'm not checking labels. It's just going down the hatch. So yeah, as a matter of fact, Supercade was initially created by CBS to counteract or ride the wave of popularity. Pac-Man, over 20 million people watched the first episode of the Pac-Man cartoon. It ended up being the highest rated Saturday morning cartoon show for that season. Yeah, it had a pretty good run, 44 episodes. It had some interesting voice actors that you may have heard of, such as one Barry Gordon, Donatello.
Who did he voice?
He was Inky the Ghost, apparently.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
No, I'm just trying to go on my memory here because like I said, main thing I remember about the show, aside from music, is the characters' voices. a bit. And like when the ghosts used to argue with each other.
Yeah, they had some.
Now true.
They had some interesting audio decisions on that show for sure, but they had some pretty notable cast. In addition, they had Peter Cullen and Frank Welker. How do you get better than that?
Who did they voice? The other ghosts or?
Oh, well, Peter Cullen was the cat. He was the cat Sourpuss.
Yeah.
Lives with the
I
Pac.
can hear it.
Yeah.
I can hear it.
Frank Welker, he was the dog.
Of course.
Never
Of
had
course.
like a pack dog or pack pup or something like that, right?
Sometimes they would show Pac Baby all grown up. So when they did that, Frank Welker was Pac Baby. And then they had Lorenzo Music, Garfield himself. He was Super Pac in the second season. They had Lorenzo Music in there, Pat Fraley, another Ninja Turtles voice actor. So yeah, they definitely, one thing you're going to see with some of these old shows is that they had some surprising additions to the voice cast, and it's going to reinforce the notion that Frank Welker and Peter Cullen were everywhere in the 80s, because you're goddamn right, because they were all over Pac-Man, they were all over Supercade, they were all over Super Mario Brothers, they were all over a lot of these shows. So Pat Fraley did a bunch of them. So yeah. So yeah, like so.
So who was actually like the main, Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man? Who voiced those two?
I didn't take those down, so they were probably just like more generic actors. I actually missed them. I wrote down like the big ones.
Yeah.
Like, somebody didn't have a Google, like a Wikipedia page or whatever. I just kind of skimmed over it. So sorry about that. I dropped the ball.
No problem. But so I understand basically Pac-Man lived with his family, and then like I guess did he work someplace or something, I think? Or what?
He had a job. I'm pretty sure he had a job.
Yeah, and then you had to, the ghost come after him. Wasn't there like some evil wizard or witch or something that kept reviving the ghost? So every time they get eaten, that's like the cartoon explanation of how they come back after they got eaten. And
Yeah.
What the heck? I can't even remember. Was it like McMahon or something? Vince McMahon? No, it was something like that though. He was trying to control, he wanted to get all the power pellets or some shit.
Yeah.
But
I forgot why he wanted them.
I do remember like every time one of the ghosts would get Pac-Man or somebody, they turn into like an old person for a little while.
He'd just be like all beat up on the floor or whatever. Like,
yeah. And it turns out Ms. Pac-Man's name was Pepper. That was interesting. I didn't know that. I guess I figured her name couldn't be Ms., but still, Pepper Pac was her name. And they had the dog and the cat and the baby. And they all went on adventures together. And then actually, believe it or not, that cartoon, as popular as it was, it ended up shaping the games for a little while. Because like way later on, if you remember the Super Nintendo game, Pac-Man 2, The New Adventures, like that was based on the cartoon. It had the same cast of characters and everything like that. That's interesting. And Pac-Land was also a spin-off of the cartoon. So it's weird, And then even like, you remember how the NES version of Pac-Man, there was a couple versions of it. One of them was by Tengen. You remember when they had heat with Nintendo? They were doing unlicensed games and shit, the black cartridges. So on the box art for the Tengen Pac-Man, they have like art from the cartoon show. So
oh man,
the cartoon ended up being, it made its mark. It hung around for a little while, but then it was just, believe it or not, too, something that was crazy about that show that you wouldn't even think, because I mean, see a little bit of it to get caught up, but it shows how certain debates and arguments go back even longer than you might imagine, because one of the few complaints people had of the show was that parents thought it was too violent. They thought the Pac-Man cartoon was too violent. They thought specifically like...
Wait. I think I know where you're going with this.
Yes.
The parents had problem with the chomping, because the sound that it made when they used the chomp.
Yeah, they thought the chomping
kind of bad.
Was too violent, so they started coming up with ways to cut away from it, so you didn't see it so much. But yeah, first ever video game cartoon show, and right away you're dealing with these complaints of it's too violent.
Well, I mean, they don't want it to be too suggestive with Pac-Man always eating out Sue,
Yeah, for a while there, I remember like they started changing from the chomping noise to you'd hear the ghost running off screen, and you'd hear Pac-Man actually make the walk-up noise when he catch him, as opposed to just hearing like that actual chomp, which That chomp
What was it, like a bone crunching chomper?
It was like a. I can't remember. It was something like that.
It almost sounded like somebody took an office stapler and like jabbed it into a piece of lettuce or something.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
But I will say this much about that. What Will just said, I had no idea they changed that, and that just shows how much my memory it focuses on that part. It's sort of like me with Ghostbusters. In my mind, I'm always hearing Lorenzo music and what's her name as Janine, and I totally forgot about the changes until I went back and rewatched the real Ghostbusters. I was like, wait a minute, now I know why I stopped watching the show.
Yeah. I will say this though, my memories of the Pac-Man show, like I said, I was literally just born. I couldn't even open my eyes yet when that show debuted, literally. So I wouldn't have seen it during its first run, but I know I saw it a couple years later, when I was 3 or 4. I used to see it on the USA Cartoon Express. Because back then they used to run 2 Cartoon Express blocks every day. They used to run a block in the morning, and then they'd run a block in the evening around like 6 to 8, I think, or somewhere around there. So they'd run all the Hanna-Barbera. It was usually Hanna-Barbera stuff back then. In the late 80s, early 90s, they started accumulating other shows. Like they got He-Man for a while. They got Ninja Turtles for a while, Real Ghostbusters. Those were all Cartoon Express shows, but you probably remember that the early USA Cartoon Express was almost 100% Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yogi's Treasure Hunt.
Yogi's Treasure Hunt, Laugh Olympics.
Oh yeah, they had the Pebbles and Bam Bam show. So they had that fucking
The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. Oh, I used to love that one. Because it was the only one that actually dealt with the occult and spooky stuff and real ghosts, and parents had a problem with it. Okay.
I remember at night settling in for bed around like 7 o'clock or whatever, and I'd catch the Pac-Man show on Cartoon Express, and it was cool. I mean, you know, it was what it was, and that's the first couple shows we talk about going chronologically. We're going to hear a lot of, well, it was what it was. But, you know, what was cool to me was like, even though execution-wise, the show, you know, you play the game, you're in this black maze with these pellets, and you just run around eating pellets and stuff. You know, obviously for a cartoon, you got to take a lot of liberties, make a lot of changes. But yeah, they found ways to try to make you think of the games. Like they kept the characters, they changed them a lot, but they had them in there. They used sound effects and music that were reminiscent, and that would make you think, oh, Pac-Man. So, you know, it was what it was. It was rough. It could have been worse, could have been better, could have been worse. It definitely made its impact. I mean, Pac-Man was everywhere at that point. That's why it's not surprising at all that was the first cartoon based on a video game, because at that time, I mean, it was probably the biggest. I mean, you had the Pac-Man board game, which we all probably lost the marbles to right away. I had the pastas. I don't know if Chef Boyardee. Yeah, I think Chef Boyardee made the Pac-Man.
Yeah, they did. I remember that.
I used to eat Pac-Man while I'm watching Pac-Man. That was my thing. Yeah, so Pac-Man fever was real, man, and it was everywhere back then. So that was the ground floor, and then it was so successful. I mean, 20 million people watched this cartoon show in '83, the day after I was born. They should have been paying attention to me, but they were watching Pac-Man. But anyway, you know, that was a huge cultural milestone.
Yeah.
So successful that it begat Saturday Supercade. So huge deal.
You know, that Pac-Man Shopware ID sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Now I remember when I was a kid, I had one time had a Pac-Man shirt that was kind of based. I think it was based on the original arcade cabinet art, where Pac-Man was like this weird yellow dude with 2 legs, like just a weird guy with 2 legs, and Pac-Man ghost is behind him or something like that. And I was like, you know, but that was the shirt I had, but obviously that won't no longer fit me. That was like a long time ago. But yeah, Pac-Man was everywhere back then. It was like all over the place. And that's well, the thing is, what's weird is that we never saw Pac-Man in the arcade, because I guess we were maybe it was already gone by the time we were there. When we went to the arcades, we saw Miss Pac-Man everywhere. That's what we always saw. We go to the arcades. It was everywhere. There was an arcade where the table was the arcade and it had Miss Pac-Man on there, but I've never seen Pac-Man until I got, like what you said, the Tengen, you know, Nintendo cartridge. But yeah, that was interesting.
Hey, bro,
Those, those cocktail table units were the shit, man. Those take me
Yeah.
back. Those were like harder to find, but yeah, like the little cocktail table gamers. Oh man, that's how you knew you were at a fancy place.
I think they had one that was like Galaga and one was Miss Pac-Man, but I forgot, there was this big place. It later became like a furniture store or some crap, but it used to be like a giant arcade back in the day.
When I was
And
a
I
kid,
don't know if
you
you
found
remember that one, Johnny, because you were like real small.
Oh, I don't even remember the cartoons, to be honest. If I even watched it, I don't think I wasn't even born when that shit happened. But I just remember that as a kid, every time we went to the rental video store, I think we always try to make it a goal that, okay, just rent whatever other games I guess we were renting that time. I don't know if it was Double Dragon or some shit like that, but we got to get Pac-Man as well.
Yeah.
Like it's
I was
always
surprised. I was surprised because back then I literally thought that both games were the same, but then I see little differences, like the ghosts are different. Miss Pac-Man in general is a faster game than Pac-Man. And the most noticeable thing is that like Pac-Man, like he moves on his own kind of, like if you press right or something, he'll keep going to the right until you actually move the joystick another direction. While Miss Pac-Man is more fluid, she stops when you stop, you know what I mean? But that was an interesting little detail.
Hey, I forgot that the Tiger, those little handheld games, not the Game Boy, but like the little Tiger ones.
We all know about the Tiger games. Remember what age we're in, Johnny? We all know about Tiger games.
Oh my God! Did they ever have Pac-Man on that format as well, or they didn't?
I don't remember, but I would not be surprised if he did.
I'm almost positive they did. So getting back to what you were saying, Mark, you were saying that one of the differences you noticed was that you had a little bit more control over Ms. Pac-Man.
Yeah, I think so. I think she stops when you stop, but Pac-Man just keeps going, or one of the two.
Oh, geez, a woman listens. Go figure.
Oh my God. That's the sound of us getting canceled.
Any other fond memories of the Pac-Man cartoon? Because I do remember watching it, but unfortunately it wasn't around for long. By the time I was in kindergarten, I think in like '87, gone. And then it was one of those shows that didn't get a lot of reruns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like I said, most of my memories of the show is it's like scattered scenes, not like full episodes. So I don't have so many memories. Like even like the bad guy for the series, I don't remember why he wanted the power pellets. I mean, I don't know why he kept going.
He just wanted the power of the power pellets.
I guess so. Oh, and just because I was curious and I could not remember, I was looking up the voice actors. I forgot Rusty Taylor did voice work in the show too, but Rusty Taylor was everywhere in the 80s. So there you go. And then we got...
A lot of these people was.
Yeah, then you got Pac-Man himself. Now, he's more known for more, I guess, live action things and some voice work. But I do know a character he did voice on an older cartoon that I actually used to like for the music. Have you guys ever heard of the show The Cat and the Cats? It's from right about 1969 or so.
I want to say yeah.
I think it was 69 or maybe 67, 68, right about that time. I love
baby.
But I love the music for that series. And they had like one little, it was kind of like a collection of cartoons. The Cat and the Cats, Cat and the Cats are the stars. There's would be like a rock band. And then they have like, other cartoons within the series, and they have like shorts of those. So there was this one cartoon called Alto Kaya and Melter Miles. Country as heck. But he voiced AutoCAD, and now I'm hearing it.
No, man.
Like I said, I'm music and sound effects, so that's how I remember things. But
whatever gets you there.
Lots of dust over there, Rox.
Right?
Yep.
Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we're getting there.
Hey, it is Halloween. We got to talk about, well, we'll talk more about that. Stop it.
Oh,
so we got Pac-Man. So like we talked about, that'll be a good springboard. So Pac-Man was so goddamn successful that The other networks and, the other animation studios, they looked at that and they were like, how can we kind of bite off this? And that begat Saturday Supercade a year later. So that was a little bit more notorious because instead of just focusing on one character, they focused on several different video games at once in like a power block. So that was a neat idea that Ruby Spears had. Ruby Spears was another very notorious animation studio. Back in the 80s, they did a lot of cool shows.
Everywhere.
What's that?
Everywhere.
Yeah, they
Felt like
even,
it.
they did that really awesome Superman cartoon that only ran for one season back then,
I
too.
remember
It was
that
too
one.
expensive. So,
But-
yeah, that was 83 to 84, yeah. So they definitely, they pretty much went into production as soon as Pac-Man debuted because they wanted to jump on that. So let's talk a little bit about Saturday Supercade.
Yeah, you can name off the shows. I watched some. I tried to watch some. They're very hard to watch nowadays. Oh my God, they're so hokey. But it's the times and whatever.
They were rough.
mean-
I mean, they were very silly, very slapstick. I watched a few to refresh my memory. It's another show like Pac-Man that hasn't been re-released. It's very hard to come by except for YouTube. So I was going to say before, thank God for YouTube because some of this stuff would be lost without it,
Yeah.
But yeah, Saturday Supercade, they were out for a while. They did first ever animated versions of a lot of characters we've come to know, like Donkey Kong, Mario, Donkey Kong Jr. They did the Pitfall segment. What did they do? I got my notes here. They did Cubert,
Frogger.
one, and then the second season they replaced a couple segments, the Kangaroo and Space Ace, a couple newer games. I don't think I saw much of the second season. I remember the Donkey Kong stuff. I saw that. The Frogger stuff I remember. Oh, that was rough. That was really rough. The Frogger stuff. And I know I saw the others, the Pitfall, Cubert. I don't remember too much about those though.
So let's start with Donkey Kong then. The most I get from the show is that I guess Donkey Kong escaped from the zoo. So Mario and Pauline have to like drive around, try to catch him.
He escaped from the
And,
circus, sir.
Oh, the circus. Okay, sorry.
Well,
Yep.
occasionally-
Then the Game and Watch game.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Canon.
Donkey Kong apparently either gets into trouble or he runs into like bad guys that trick him into doing crimes. So Mario and Pauline help him. Hey, you've been tricked and that kind of crap. But always at the end of the show, Donkey Kong finds a way to escape for the next episode and stuff. So episode I saw was kind of interesting because it actually had Stanley from Donkey Kong Country 3. Donkey Kong 3, the one with the guy, because that one didn't have Mario, that had a different character.
Yeah, Stanley the
Basically
Bugman.
doing like the bug spray for Donkey Kong going to bugs at you and stuff. So in this episode, Stanley had one of those, talking cartoon Venus flytrap type plants that actually eats metal. So some crook was like, haha, I'll use this to steal, eat the safes and crap and steal the money or whatever. So Donkey Kong was there. The plant likes Donkey Kong. The guy kind of tricked Donkey Kong to coming along because he could tame the plant and whatever. And so Mario meets Stanley. They work together and they go to some big event that had jewels and junk, and that's how they stop him or whatever. But and Mario, of course, looked very weird because that's how he was kind of drawn back then in the, Donkey Kong, like the cabinet part and stuff like that.
I was going to say that the gravity in the Mushroom Kingdom must be intense because you notice how Mario, when he was in our world, he was probably about maybe 5'10", and then he goes into Mushroom Kingdom and he's like 4'3". So he was definitely looking pretty slender.
He ate some of Jericho's poutine as well.
No. Remember. See, the official height for Mario is 5'5".
Interesting.
Wow.
And Mario was also Peter Cullen in this show. Just goes to show you where he was everywhere.
Mhm.
So that was everybody's flipping out about his voice in the movie right now. Everybody is like, oh well, that don't sound like the Mario from the games. And it was like, well, listen, motherfucker, to me the Mario from the games don't sound right either, because Captain Lou was my Mario. But even besides Captain Lou, the first Mario that anybody ever saw or heard was Peter Cullen. So I mean, there it is.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. to me, Mario will always have that Brooklyn. Mario and Luigi will always have that Brooklyn accent with a little Italian thrown in, and that's it. I never liked that. Mamma mia, it's a spicy meatball crap. I never liked that.
And that was the thing what people were saying that would be like, I know they're complaining a lot that Charles Martinet, which by the way, Johnny and I were in the area. I forgot who voices Bowser in the game, but we were there with Charles and the voice of Bowser. It's just he wait, he costs too much for an autograph. I'm not gonna be in line for an hour or two, But he was there at one of the, I think, Level Up Expos or something. But the thing is, can you imagine an entire movie that requires like full dialogue? Just go, hey, I was here, and I can't even do it. Like, hey, it's me, Mario. I was in Brooklyn, and then they kidnapped the princess, and I got to save her. And they got the like the whole movie like that with very high pitched. That would get annoying quickly.
I never was a big fan of the Mario 64 Mario voice.
Yeah. Like, it sounds okay when it's just, woo, ha-ha, and that kind of junk, but not like full sentences.
But yeah, this new movie, I didn't really heard Mario's voice that well because, it was just like a very quick glimpse that I watched the footage. I think it was like on the Instagram or whatever. But the thing is, people are complaining about the voice, but honestly, they wanted to change the voice because the Mario 64 voice sounded a little too stereotypical, so they probably want to avoid some of the backlash.
Yeah. People are also pissed because the guy himself is in the movie. I think he voices maybe a minor character too. So I was kind of like, dude, he's already there. Fucking make him voice Mario. So I kind of get that. But,
I mean, I'm not saying he sounds like Mickey Mouse if he went to Brooklyn for a week, but
right.
That's pretty much what he sounds like.
I think the movie's going to be good. I think they did a good job with the voice casting. Like I said, going all the way back to the beginning, these people need to know their history because Mario technically, canonically sounds like either Peter Cullen or Captain Lou. And Donkey Kong is actually Soupy Sales. So that was actually pretty cool. I never knew that until the other day when I was doing my research. Was it in the Supercade cartoon, Soupy Sales was actually the voice of Donkey Kong. Go figure. Historical, man. That was actually those shorts were not that bad. I mean, they were rough. They were rough, but at the same time, par for the course, I think, for 83, 84. I watch a lot of old cartoons. I'm kind of a historian of many things, but I really big into cartoons. And they are kind of hard to go back to. I thought Frogger was really rough. that was pretty bad. But I didn't think Donkey Kong was that bad. I thought Donkey Kong was pretty good actually. You still found ways to kind of work stuff in there. Like he's climbing ladders, he's going up the side of a construction site or whatever. Donkey Kong, they find reasons to throw barrels or, every once in a while he'll grab Pauline and go running up the side of a building. There's usually the same plot of every episode like Mark touched on with, the generic bad guys looking for diamonds or money or whatever, buried treasure. They trick Donkey Kong into helping him out. And then Mario, they got to both figure it out and stop the bad guys and get Donkey Kong back. Kids' cartoons were so simplistic back then to begin with. They weren't really doing anything anybody else didn't do. And it was just goofy fun. That's all it was supposed to be about. That's what cartoons were about back then.
And of course, making a lot of money for the studios. Hey, boys.
Of course, and don't forget toy sales.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for what they needed it to be. Obviously, much better things would come later on. And one of the things we'll notice as well as we go on is that as time went on, the shows started adapting the games much better because at this point, most of these games had very little story to them to adapt. So the cartoons, they really had to go way off in the left field and do whatever they felt like because if you were trying to adapt the games, there wasn't much story to be had. So that's why you get these kind of things.
Let's get into Frogger real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say add on to something like what Rikki was saying there. It's like also the shows back then, and even prior to that, everything was very episodic because back then, when you missed something, you missed it. So they had to have it set up so like no matter where you come in on it, you can easily pick it up compared to like how shows are these days where you can like, oh, the whole series is there. We can just go on a streaming service and just watch it. But back then, they made it episodic for that very reason.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing those skits on like early mornings on some syndicated channel, and they entertained me. They were what they were. They was what they was.
Yeah. Now with Frogger though, in the original game, wasn't he just like trying to get the frog to cross the street without getting squished? He was only like actual character in the game, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That was interesting. See, one of the reasons I loved Supercade, even though my memories of it are very dim, but one of the reasons I was excited about it as a little kid was because the two games I played when I was like 3 years old were Frogger and Donkey Kong. So to see a cartoon referencing them, the games, I played them every day from 3, 4, 5 years old. As we got more games, I played more games, but that was where it started, was with Frogger and Donkey Kong. And yeah, Frogger, you're just trying to cross the highway and then cross the stream and get into your little hideout there. Now, some of the sequels started adding like adventure elements to it and other characters, but the original game, which was all that existed at that time, yeah, he was pretty much just trying to not get squished. So the cartoon producers did not have a lot to work with as far as adapting Frogger. So I guess you can make him a newspaper reporter just as well as you can make him an astronaut. Like, I guess it technically doesn't fucking matter, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, they give him a girlfriend and a friggin' Perry White editor-in-chief, and, he goes on adventures. That were kind of Scooby-Doo affairs, in a sense,
Yeah.
They kind of ripped off Scooby-Doo a little bit. They ripped off Superman and Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. And the
That
little
was
turtle friend, and I guess the only thing is, again, like you said, what of the game is there to adapt? The only thing it did adapt is that he does get squished like he does in the game. So
They
you do that
pumped
at
him up
least.
with the bike pump. He inflates him again with the bike pump.
Yeah. And I saw an episode where there was a mysterious crook stealing stuff all over town, so they have to investigate it. And near the end of the episode where the bad guy got away, I forgot how Frogger somehow got squished, but this time instead of just pumping him up normally, his girlfriend pumped him up to, like, he turned into a fucking inflatable raft so they could get on him and follow the bad guy and whatever, and, and catch him and stuff. And it was like, there was like a sheriff and a deputy there, and when they were trying to find out, it's like, get out of here, mind your own business. So in the end, it turned out that the deputy was the crook all along and stuff like that. But yeah, I think what you said, very like Perry White, like, I want the story, that kind of thing, same kind of thing. But that was like the weirdest thing, and I didn't like his design in the cartoon either. He was kind of like a brownish green design with like black markings around it. Like I wish you just went with a more generic, just green and yellow design, a more cleaner design. But
That was a rough show. Some more good voice acting though. You had his girlfriend Fanny. That was B.J. Ward, Scarlet from G.I. Joe. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see. She also was Princess Allura on Voltron. I forgot about that. So yeah, we got some credentials there for the Frogger cartoon. Yeah, actually, she was the biggest notable because she did a lot of stuff. She did some Flintstone stuff. She was Wonder Woman on Galactic Guardians, Velma on some Scooby-Doo stuff. So yeah, they got her involved. That's pretty cool. But then again, like most people on these shows, she was everywhere back then. But yeah, I checked out some of the Supercade stuff. Frogger didn't sit too good with me. It was what it was, but it was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They tried. What can I say? I'll pass that baton to somebody else. They might have more to say than I did on Frogger. And it sucked too because that was my favorite game as a kid. That and Donkey Kong. Like I said, I still mess with Frogger. I still love it. I'm still great at it. But yeah.
And well, for me, for all of the Saturday Supercade, I don't know if I ever saw any of it. And if I did, my memories were very hazy on it. Main thing, my earliest memory of Saturday morning cartoons is the Smurfs. And I started, and apparently, according to my mother, I started watching that when I was like actually a year old after the show had been on for about a year. So that's like one of my earliest memories. And if I was looking at Smurfs, that would have been on NBC. I wouldn't have been on CBS or ABC. So who knows?
Yeah.
And I probably wasn't turning the remote. Well, I'm sorry, going up and turning the knob on the TV, but you know.
Wow.
But I know of Saturday Supercade, so. But I have seen a little bit of the Donkey Kong cartoon. I have seen a little of that one. I've never seen any of Frogger. I've never seen any of Donkey Kong Jr. I've never seen Q*bert. I know it exists, but even in my mind, I'm thinking, how do you make a cartoon out of Q*bert? But then again, if they can make a cartoon out of the Rubik's Cube,
I
why
can go
not?
with that one. Have you seen that one yet, William White? Either Donkey Kong or Frogger cartoons?
I vaguely remember, oddly enough, the second season, which was the Q*bert and the Space Ace series. And I was mainly in for Space Ace because back then when I was a kid, I was just like, holy crap, this is like a space version of, you know,
Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair. So it's just like, oh, wow, you know.
And Space Ace actually did get rerun more than the other segments. That one ran on Cartoon Network, like in between commercials. They ran the Space Ace stuff for a while in the late 90s. Not so much the other shows, but Space Ace did have a bit of a second life, yeah. But I didn't see that one so much, but it jumps out at me for that reason.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say,
At the time, it was more or less like Don Bluth kind of like experimenting, doing like trying to do Saturday morning cartoons as opposed to doing like, you know, the big 2-hour movies like he's used to and stuff like that. And frankly, that's what really got me into watching that was actually Space Ace.
I was gonna say something. Well, I do have one little memory of Saturday Supercade. Not like from my perspective, but my older cousin used to watch it. He had like 5 years on me, so I know he used to watch Saturday Supercade because I remember he used to talk about it sometimes. But he didn't play games because my aunt and uncle didn't allow him. But he used to watch. I remember he used to talk about it sometimes during our usual arguments of which was better, She-Ra or He-Man, like when I was a little older, but you know, stuff like that.
And then they had the Donkey Kong Jr. skit, which was like, it referenced the main Donkey Kong show as like its raison d'etre because like Donkey Kong Jr. was pissed off that Donkey Kong escaped from the circus, so he teamed up with that motorcycle guy to go try to find him.
Yeah.
That was the whole plot of Donkey Kong Jr. So you had but then what kind of a dick was Donkey Kong though? Because like, you know, he never thought about or mentioned Junior in the main show. Like, oh man, I wonder if Junior's worried about me. Nope. He just does not want to go back and he'll do anything so he doesn't have to go back to that circus.
He didn't want to pay child support, yo.
Who does? Who does?
Okay, I have a question. So I didn't know that was the premise of Donkey Kong Jr. though. Now here's my question now. Who is Junior's mother? And does that mean Donkey Kong is trying to get out of paying for alimony too?
Now, one thing is, in the cartoon, Donkey Kong Jr. talks just fine, which makes it so weird because in Donkey Kong's own show, he barely talks, he makes grunts, sometimes he says, Donkey Kong, and that's like the most he talks. But Donkey Kong like talks regularly. So I'm going to say Mama's probably Pauline. Who knows?
Oh, God.
But they also, that was also, what's his name? Frank Welker was Donkey Kong Jr., so maybe that's why they made him more articulate so they could get their money's worth out of him. But yeah, now, first of all, I found a couple holes in your theory, though, because, okay, so if Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. are both living at the circus, then that would imply that Donkey Kong has custody, so he's not paying anybody child support. That's number one. So you darn goofed, Mark. I mean, you know, and then as far as who the mother is, I don't want to say Pauline because we see her a lot in that cartoon and she's walking just fine.
Oh God!
She could have had a C-section.
No, I don't think even just the act would have left her in any shape to move. So the fact that she's even mobile, and plus Mario doesn't seem all that pissed at her. Like he seems like they're pretty tight. So yeah, could have been that. Could have been that. I don't know.
Yeah, that brought a whole new term to Smash Brothers.
Go to hell.
Yeah, so then moving on to Pitfall. It was Pitfall, which
and that one I didn't see. What was the gimmick with that one?
Well, Pitfall Harry was in it, and they gave him a niece character. I guess a big thing. I noticed a lot of these cartoons they gave the protagonist like a sidekick, and I'm guessing it has a lot to do with the basic idea that a lot of entertainment for kids had back then, whereas the protagonist needs to have somebody to talk to explain the plot.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where Batman and Robin came from. Like instead of like just having text balloons or text blocks over the artwork, they figured, well, Batman could just say this to somebody. So they came up with Robin. So partly for that reason. So they gave Pitfall Harry his niece. The heck was her name? Rhonda. Yeah, and their pet mountain lion, Quick Claw. They would go through the jungles and try to find treasures, go on adventures and stuff like that. And those characters actually ended up being put into Super Pitfall and Pitfall 2. So that's interesting. Again, just like Pac-Man cartoon left a mark on the mainstream Pac-Man media, the Pitfall cartoon segments with his niece and the mountain lion, they kind of paid it forward in the other Pitfall games. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, my memories of that are pretty vague as well. I wanted to see some more of that, but I didn't get a chance to before we got together.
Any notable voice actors in that one or no?
Which I just kind of had
That was short run too. They only did 7 episodes of that because what they used to do is they would rotate segments in and out. So not every show aired every week. And Pitfall was the one they did the least of. They only did 7 episodes of that, and then the second season they got rid of it.
Oh wow! What were you gonna say, William?
Okay, I just had a random thought though. So back in the day, there was an Atari 2600 commercial where there was this, kind of chubby kid that was talking about the Pitfall game. And you come to find out later that this was like a 10-year-old Jack Black, which is funny that we brought that up because later on he grows up and now he's doing the voice of Bowser in the Mario movie. So
I remember that commercial. I saw that on YouTube a while ago.
Does he look like? Can you still tell it's Jack Black?
Like you could clearly tell it's him. It looks just like it looks like him, clean shaven, just smaller head. That's about it.
Oh wow! I gotta watch that when this is over.
Yeah.
And not for YouTube. You can literally pull up. You can just type, show me those old Sega commercials, and you can find videos of them. That's so cool.
That's what I did when we did the Tournament Fighters episode, man. And I wanted to look at the old. I told you the commercial for the game was what really hooked me initially. And so as soon as we got done, I looked it up and I was like, oh, there it is. The fucking guy, like he's in the Fight Club, like the Underground Fight Club.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, of course, infamously, Q*bert. Now, this one I did remember watching. I didn't watch it to get caught up for today, but I did watch it as a kid. I definitely remember seeing Q*bert and those characters and everything. And that was a pretty noble attempt. I mean, for what Q*bert was. Again, like with Pac-Man, you get the characters in there. You have them go on a type of adventure. The adaptations had to be really loose, but they did the thing. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, from what I saw, Q*bert and his extra buddies, they're like, I guess they're teens. They're cool, I guess, 50s, 60s teens or whatever. And all the bad guys were greasers. They wore like leather jackets and stuff, the snakes and the snake girlfriend and little fuzzy guys. And, well, 2 things was kind of cool for the game. One thing was there would be times where Q*bert would still, hit something, smack something, run into something. So he'll say the little curse word thing.
Yes.
And there was always some kind of chase. I don't know every episode, because I don't know how you can make that excuse in every episode, but there's a segment where they're chasing each other and they'll always encounter either a building or some kind of something that kind of has that multi-level thing. So they're jumping, the colors change, and Q*bert has to stop on the bad guys or whatever. And the weird thing is they gave him these little ink balls they could put in his nose and just shoot out to make the bad guy slip. That was because I guess he needed something to fight back against or whatever.
Something offensive, yeah.
Yeah. The one I saw was him talking his girlfriend into entering like a beauty contest, and bad guys wanted their bad girl character to win, so they were doing all kinds of cheesy shit to sabotage them, and it was just weird. It was hard to one episode was enough. I saw one episode of Donkey Kong, I'm good. One episode of Donkey Kong Jr., yeah, I'm good. Q*bert, Frogger, yeah, I'm good for the night. I'm not watching anything else. I'm good for tonight.
The good thing is there's not a ton of episodes of any of them, so none of them really overstay their welcome too much. But yeah, they don't really hold up too well, I don't think, to a lot of repeat viewings. But they're the kind of thing you could throw on, watch one or two, laugh at it, be like, put it away. Like, okay, that was what it was. But hey, as a kid, that's all we watched anyway. They'd show one or two of them, and then they'd go on to Huckleberry Hound or whatever,
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo. So that's the thing we forget. Like nowadays, we watch a lot of these shows, and we watch them in binges, 2-3 hours at a time, and then we're like nitpicking it. We're like, man, I don't know if this really holds up all that well. But we weren't doing that as kids. We were watching it for like 25 minutes at a time, or an hour if it was 2 episodes, and then we would go outside and jump off the slide or whatever. They
Plant
were
some trees.
And not only that, but back then as kids, like that was all we needed. It was just, oh my God, Donkey Kong in a cartoon. That's literally all we needed. He could, like you said, he could have been a fucking astronaut or something, and it still would have been, it's a Donkey Kong cartoon. Oh my God,
Yeah, I mean,
that's all we really needed,
Yeah, I mean, and that's why some of the ones we're going to talk about upcoming, a lot of people kind of crack on now. But then you go back to some of the earlier stuff, and you're like, well, they were always kind of questionable, but they still had a certain charm and a certain heart to them. There was nothing like, yeah, they were pretty, especially these early ones. They were pretty lazily done. They were done quick and cheap. But then again, it's like everything was back then. There was standard. It wasn't. There was nothing cynical about it, really. It was just good, clean fun for 3, 4, 5-year-old kids, and that was the audience, and they hit it big with the audience. I mean, here we are still talking about it. They are kind of forgotten though, in a sense that because they never had a big re-release, the Pac-Man show or the Saturday Supercade, they never really had that. There was like the Cubert one did. They had almost all the episodes. They came out on a best of DVD, and even that was like manufactured on demand. But none of the other ones had that.
Interesting.
Frank Logan was all over Cubert stuff.
You don't want to forget that one. But I've seen some, like you said before, they would rerun them later on Cartoon Network. I saw some episodes. The only thing is that I never really played the game. I know that it's like, I guess maybe by the same people that made Dragon's Lair, which is why it's similar, right? But all I knew about Space Age was some commercial on one of the Game Pros or whatever, and I was so confused because on the commercial, it was like the big buff dude and the girl he's got to rescue whatever. But when I saw the cartoon, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, because most of you, maybe some of you played the game, but in the cartoon it had a gimmick where like he would randomly transform into like a smarter, geeky, weak version of himself and stuff, and he had to like turn back into Space Ace because the bad guy can take advantage that, oh, he's weak now, I can take the girl now or whatever. Like was that how it was in the game? Did he transform into like a geeky self or something? Or what was the story behind that shit?
Actually, Space Ace was was almost just like Dragon's Lair, where you kind of had the, the action movement where it was just a full animation and you were just kind of like going through it. But yeah, like at first he starts off as this kind of, twerpy character, but then there'll be moments where, something will happen, and I forget what it was that would cause it, but it would trip him off and he would turn into, Space Ace, and then he'd be able to go ahead and, try to stop and fight the villain. But just as he'd get about that close to, delivering the knockout blow, he'd go back to his twerpy version of himself, and then the game would continue on. And then you're pretty much going through this, like, almost like a cat and mouse game of trying to catch up to him. But as soon as you get close, he turns back into the twerp, and then you got to start all over again. Oh. But other than that, yeah, that was pretty much the same thing with the cartoon. Like, his girlfriend would get kidnapped, and he'd just be like, well, I have to do something. I'll turn into Space Ace. And then, he'll get close, and something will happen that's going to turn him back into the derp, and then he's got to figure out a way to kind of pull through even without Space Ace. So that was pretty much the main premise of the cartoon. It was just like, you don't really have to have superpowers to be a hero, but they're helpful.
That had some notable voice actors amongst the cast too. They had the girl Kimberly. That was actually Nancy Cartwright.
Nah,
So,
Bart,
that was
Bart Simpson, right?
indeed. So that was like one of
so
those
the bag is like, I'm gonna kidnap you, eat my shorts. You know,
way before she was ever Bart Simpson, a couple years before. And of course, their boss or whatever, their Space Marshal Vaughn, that was, of course, Peter Renaday, Master Splinter himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. So again, what's really cool, you go back to these old video game cartoons, you know, you get some of the usual suspects, you get your Frank Welkers, your Peter Cullens, and then you also get some of these more obscure cuts, like, you know, Barry Gordon or whatever, Peter Renaday, like, holy shit, they were in that too. Soupy Sales, for fuck's sake, you know? So yeah, I mean,
I gotta say real quick though, one of the weirdest like things I ever heard for Peter Renaday was he was the voice of the Kingpin in Spider-Man versus the Kingpin, the Sega CD game that had like the cutscenes. And like I don't know if that's his regular voice or whatever, but in that particular game as the Kingpin, I mean that was literally his Master Splinter voice. And it just sounds so fucked up with all these evil things, but Splinter saying, Spider-Man will die. And there's even an ending part where Spider-Man and Mary Jane are suspended above acid. And they legit animated that if you, I guess, fuck up or the bad, and they're in the acid. They're like, and there's like fucking blood splatter in it. And Kingpin's like, but Splinter's voice, oh yes, Spider-Man is no more. I'm like, dude, Splinter got evil, man. He got whacked.
bring me the drugs.
No, man. Did he sound like Splinter in the Space Ace cartoon, or anyone remembers that? Or did he change his voice, you know? Because that's why they're called voice actors, right? They're not supposed to sound
Yeah, well, I don't remember. Like I said, I don't think I paid too much. I don't think the reruns I saw showed too many skits from the second season. Space Ace was second season. That and Kangaroo, they were season 2. I didn't watch
Oh,
those.
yeah. What was the gimmick with that one?
God.
I vaguely remember it because I remember playing the arcade. I just forgot what the arcade was. But I remember that when there was, coming home, the cartoon, hey, it's that same game we played today or whatever, But I don't remember the plot.
So it was mostly Pat Fraley and Frank Welker doing all the voices. It's basically a family of kangaroos trying to stop a family of monkeys from making mischief at the zoo. I don't remember the game too well, but that was the show apparently. Kangaroos versus monkeys at the zoo. Why not?
Hey, they have birds versus pigs, right? So monkeys versus kangaroos back in the day.
84, people didn't need a whole lot to get kids to sit still for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have no memory of that one at all. No memory of that one. I have Donkey Kong, a little bit of Donkey Kong Jr. up there. Q-Bird I know I saw, and a little bit of Frogger. I must have seen a little bit of Pitfall. So yeah, like those all would have been season 1 shorts. So yeah, the stuff I saw definitely was during the stuff that they reran from the first season. Second season, I don't know. I don't know if I ever saw any of the Space Ace of the Kangaroo.
No, man. That was just so weird because I forgot I was telling Wendy or someone, like, I just don't remember those other games. When Johnny and I went to the arcades as real little kids, I remember Miss Pac-Man, Frogger, Galaga, I don't know about Q-Bert, seeing it in the wild, but like the Kangaroo game, Donkey Kong Jr., and Adventure Donkey Kong 3, and
I played that shit all the time.
Millipede, Centipede, but I don't remember seeing Double Dragon, and I don't remember seeing the first Street Fighter. Not in the arcades.
I played all those games that were on Supercade. I played those games a lot, whether it was in the arcade or on my Atari. I actually had the ColecoVision with the Atari 2600 add-on module. So,
oh, wow.
Module Component 1. So be jealous. I don't have it anymore though. Some motherfucker stole it. I do have the ColecoVision, but I still have to buy I still have to get the add-on module back. But yeah, so back then.
I was going to say, that's just so amazing how the systems worked back then, especially like you said with ColecoVision, how they had that so you play the 2600 games. So people probably buy that system more so, and then you can play those Atari games plus whatever library they had. So it's like, you're doubling up on the games you could play.
It was great for us consumers. They did get sued over it, but They became a licensee, so they settled it out of court. But yeah, it was funny because a few years later, in my childhood mind, I was thinking like, well, eventually they'll probably do like a console where it's like a Super Nintendo that plays Genesis games, because that's what they did back in the Atari games. Because, you think something that happened once, it might happen again. Obviously it didn't. But, I grew up with that as a reality. I played my Atari games on my ColecoVision. And now I tell people about that. And if they weren't there for it, they're like, what? It's like, yeah. So I played Frogger, Donkey Kong. I had Donkey Kong Jr. on the NES. I played that. Cubert, I played a lot on Atari. So yeah, the Supercade gimmick was pretty much made for somebody like me, because I was like 3-4 years old. I wasn't really looking too deep at my cartoons. It was just like, oh, cool, Donkey Kong. Oh, cool, Frogger. And just going with that, and then you'd get done with the show, and then maybe you go play the game. It was a simpler time. I don't necessarily want to say a better time, because things would obviously get a lot better for video games and for cartoons in the very near future. But yeah, I mean, it was a certain charm, a certain magic to it back then, I want to say. It's a shame that it wasn't better preserved. You can find it on YouTube in really rough shape. It's not great, but it is what it is, and it definitely paved the way for everything that would come later on. So you definitely have to give credit where it's due, I think. It was a lot of fun to research those shows. And then there was some other ones that we didn't really go into too much, because there's not a whole lot to really say. But, there was the Dragon's Lair cartoon. That was another one that came out of the whole craze, Another one that was actually not, the premise was similar to the game, but, they did make a lot of changes. They put a lot of clothes on Princess Daphne, for starters. I don't know if you ever saw the Dragon's Lair cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
She definitely wasn't wearing that negligee and that black lacy thing.
Black see-through lit? No, she was not. Not at all.
They pretty much dressed her up like Toadstool, basically.
When he's making that face like, oh, the men of culture.
Well, I mean, you literally had people in the arcade doing backflips when they would show her in that game. Yeah, back in '83.
Backflips with their third leg.
For Saturday mornings, they're like, that ain't going to cut it. But yeah. But so then,
Not to mention, it's a little odd because Dirk the Daring kind of looks like Jim Carrey for some reason. I don't know why. But he looks like Jim Carrey in like knight's armor and a tunic.
I had not seen it, but now that I
have rescued the princess. Alrighty then.
Okay, I can't unsee that now.
I could definitely. Holy shit! Any other reminiscence or memories of Saturday Supercade or any of those other shows like Dragon's Lair, or before we move on to the big ones, the ones we know everybody's really waiting to talk about, but there was still a few things in the interim, Well, I think Dragon's Lair was probably the big one.
There were two that I remember. One of them was kind of obscure, but the old racing game Pole Position. I remember there used to be like a cartoon for that.
My cousin used to watch that.
Yeah, like they had like a racing team and they were trying to like get to the Grand Prix finals or what have you. I do remember that one. And
oh my God, Danica McKellar. Sorry, I got the Mario show on.
And another one, oddly enough, wasn't even really video game based, but it was just something that just clicked in my memory, was the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
Oh, yeah. That was a couple of years later, but I remember that one.
Yeah, it was about these 5 high school kids. They went on this roller coaster ride, and it took them into the Dungeons and Dragon dimension, and they never got back out somehow.
It never had an ending, right? I mean, but most shows back then didn't end anyway, so.
Yeah.
But I've never seen that in its original run. I never would have. I saw it like later.
Was
so
that
a little bit?
One of the things I was always thinking now as an adult, I'm thinking like what if time works differently in that world, and like whenever they finally do get out, they get out now in 2022 with all the modern stuff, like what, and like I'm also thinking like, what about all their friends and their parents? These kids are missing for who knows how long, you know what I mean? There's probably posters of them. Have you seen my daughter? Have you seen? I haven't got their names by now. It's been a while. Like,
Yeah, like Captain N should be on a milk carton somewhere, to be honest with you.
yeah, him
Right.
too. Like,
Just because he didn't want to fucking take out the garbage. What a dick. But
I know, right?
yeah, we'll get on that too.
wasn't
But,
Dungeons and Dragons, wasn't that the show? Somebody can correct me because I didn't really see too much of that, but it's one that I'm aware is very very noteworthy and very legendary among a certain audience who did pay a lot more attention to it. For some reason, I missed it. And I didn't get the DVD yet, even though I always plan to. But isn't Dungeons and Dragons, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't it like get canceled before they had a final episode, but there's something on the DVD, like a script or something for the final episode, like, or what would have been the final episode?
Yeah, they
heard that.
got canceled before, like, I want to say an episode to maybe 2 episodes before the final ones.
So they weren't intending to actually go home?
Yeah, they were actually supposed to go back home. Like,
Oh,
they actually found a way back, and then the last episode, shit can.
Wow. 'Cause you know how it is. Back then, almost every cartoon had some kind of, unattainable goal, because if they ever attain that goal, then that's it. The show's over. So it's kind of rare that they would actually plan that to have them, like, go home or whatever.
And you know what's really cool about that? Like, at least they were able to put something like that on the DVD for the audience, because for your whole, for 2 decades after you see this as a kid, right? It's like, I wonder how that was ever going to end. And then at least you get some kind of closure. That's something about DVDs and box sets and stuff that I always really liked, and I still think is cool, because you only get that with that physical experience, And it's cool because, like, what I do, I read a lot. Like, I watch a lot of stuff, but also I read about a lot of stuff. So I'm like a sponge with these details and stuff. So that's a show. I'm glad that I was pretty close to the mark with that, because I read about that like years ago. I have a list of all the shows on DVD that I don't have yet, but I want to get, like all these old cartoons and shit. And that was on there. And I remember reading about that and being like, oh, that's cool. They did the deal with the last episode. So yeah, I guess my memory's not going as bad as I thought yet. But yeah, there was Dungeons and Dragons, Dragon's Lair. It was a good time. It was a good time to be a video game fan. You didn't even know that the industry was dead because there was all this stuff coming out.
Yeah.
It was that crash from 83 to 86. But like I was saying
thanks,
before.
E.T.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of other reasons too. That was just the most prominent name-worthy one. But yeah, there was a lot of reasons for it. But yeah, I didn't know. I was telling you, I didn't know as a kid that the industry was dead, because all I knew is you could get Atari games at Toys R Us for $10. I didn't know that was a bad thing. Like, I didn't know that meant that companies were going out of business or the video games weren't popular. They seemed pretty popular to me. Pac-Man was on TV when I got home,
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one thing I remember.
Nintendo was busy trying to bring it back, and then they did. But yeah.
I remember there was a commercial once. I think it was when the 2600 was going to go out because it was going to get replaced by the 7800 or something. There was a commercial with this random fast-talking dude, and I'm sure it was not the guy from the Micro Machines. It was someone else. But it was kind of saying that, it's going out of sale, it's going out, like all these games, dirt cheap, every game, just $10. And he was listing, Millipede, Pac-Man, all that junk. And the console itself was only $50. And we were trying to see, because at the time we had no game console. The only thing we had were the fucking Tiger games, So we were trying to talk our parents into getting us a game console. So for a moment they were kind of sort of, hey, the Atari 2600 is only $50. We could maybe talk them into it, where thank God we didn't, because, the graphics are so bad. I always had the mentality that I thought that, since Atari was a game console, they were going to look exactly like they do in the arcade. Oh, I would have been so disappointed we got that. So I'm glad that we held out an extra year or so we finally got the Nintendo. But wow.
See, I grew up with those. Like I said, I had the ColecoVision with the Atari module. So I grew up playing that stuff. When we got an NES, I got the what was it, the power system or whatever. I got the NES with the red zapper and the power pad.
Yeah.
I had the three.
Oh, you got the wussified one.
I got the best Christmas ever, because I got the 3-cart. I got the Mario Brothers Duck Hunt World Class Track Meet. I had kids coming over.
Oh, you got that?
You try to race each other with the hurdles
Yeah.
and shit. Yeah, but it's real easy to cheat in that game with the power pad. You just jump off the pad and then
Just jump off the pad, jump back on.
How about
Yeah.
this? Oh yeah, we used to do that.
It was still fun though. But when I got that for Christmas, as a stupid 5-year-old kid, I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to want to play these Atari games anymore because I got Nintendo now. So I'm going to trade up, and my older brother who lived with his mom, he said, well, I'll take the Atari then. So I gave him the Atari stuff and all the games. By this point, I had like 40, 50 games, and he took it all. And I regretted that shit immediately. Like, I played Mario to death. I rented NES games all the time, but I would start to want to play Dodgem or Mega Mania or Freeway or Frogger or whatever. Like, like, God, I really got to play these old games again. And so he was nice enough to give them back when I asked. Like a year later, he gave them back to me. I was like, I got to get my Atari stuff back, man. So that was actually what convinced me to let my parents give me a TV in my room because I was like, come on, man. I'm like, by this point, I'm like 7, 8 years old. Like, I have a TV in my room and let me play my Atari up there. So the NES was on the living room TV and the Atari stuff was on my bedroom TV. So that was cool. But yeah, like, I don't know. To me, I still go back to that stuff. Like, actually, my camera is sitting on top of a stack of books, but it's also stacked on top of my Atari Flashback 5 box. I got that for a few years ago. I got the collections. I still play Atari shit all the time, man. Not like every day, but, like a couple times a year I go back and I fire some shit up and, I still have fun with it. I don't know. Maybe you had to be there, but...
Yeah. One thing that we regret that we didn't have time to because thanks to the whole pandemic and stuff, but there was a while where Johnny and I, well, I guess Johnny when he came to visit sometime, I would go to Pope's house every other weekend and his brother and all them. And the guy I was living with actually had a new, or I don't know, I wonder how new it is, but a new, still in the box, ColecoVision with a crap load of old games they got for like $100 and stuff. And he never tried it out yet. And we were hoping because, we do our show, our games, and, retro stuff too. So I was like, oh my God, it's going to be so fucking awesome to review ColecoVision games. Holy shit, assuming it works, you know what I mean? And then the pandemic happened. Everyone went their own ways. They don't want to live in the apartment anymore. Who knows who lives there now? Everyone went their ways and stuff, and it sucks. But I was like, I really wanted to play that. I was curious. I was willing to, like, because you know how the old console may not connect to the newer things. I was willing to go out and fucking buy one of those RF adapters that help you connect those older ones to the newer things if necessary. Because I'm like, we got to make that shit work. You know what I mean?
I think I'm missing a head, like one of those wire heads that screws in, to the TV. But I think I actually have a system that will work. My NES works, so
yeah.
I haven't gotten around to it yet. But yeah, man, those are the days. Yeah, I grew up with that stuff. So
I like NES because any cable that has the red and yellow white ones works. Well, that's NES Genesis, they got very specific ports or whatever, but the NES, any wire that has the, multicolor, it'll work. It'll hook up to your TV and everything.
Yeah, but I have the top loader NES, which doesn't have the red and white wires. It has the one that screws in. So I think...
Coaxial?
Yeah, it screws into the box thing on the back of the TV.
So the coaxial connector?
Yeah, so I think my Atari stuff might work if I plug it into the same box. We'll see. I just got to mess with it. I know that's how my, I guess a couple of my older systems work like that. So.
And of course, someone should mention somewhere, because we're talking about Atari, isn't one of the consoles you could actually hook up a Genesis controller and it works on it? I forgot those original Atari 26, one of those.
Yeah, you can totally plug a Genesis controller into an Atari.
Genesis controller in it, and it will run.
Yeah,
man.
I had a lot of various controllers. I didn't have a lot of experience with the standard joystick. I had like a bigger joystick that looked like it was thicker. It looked like a airplane type.
Oh, you had the one that looked like an airplane throttle?
Yeah, with the red button. It was jet black. It was huge. I had like 2 or 3 of them, but like they all broke eventually because I was really into it,
Yeah,
like,
you were really playing with the joystick hard, huh?
Yes, even at that young age. So yeah, man, those were...
Hey, Princess Daphne, yo.
Those were good times for me, man. I really... they'd get better as we were to see. But yeah, so back in the day, man, those early cartoons were right up my alley because I was playing the games, and just to see them represented at all was a big deal. But like I said, right around the same time as we were watching these shows and reruns, Nintendo was getting ready to bring it all back. And then they exploded, took over the whole world. And with that, obviously, came a huge merchandising blitz. And that means, of course, more shows. And now it's going to really get good.
Yep, now we're going to talk about the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. And I got to say, when they were putting commercials on TV, like, coming soon next week or whenever, I was like, oh my God, a Mario cartoon show and all that. That was like, we were like super excited just counting the days, man.